I'm like nervous to record this video, but I've wanted to do it for a really long time. Not to be dramatic, but it is pretty traumatizing reliving the worst day of your literal entire life. I wrote some notes, so forgive me for reading off of a laptop, but I think it'll help me a little bit. Also, I thought it would be kind of ironic to use the metal that was actually in my body as my microphone, so my microphone's attached to that. It's pretty gnarly. A hard day to most people could mean a handful of things, but to me, it means something very specific. When I look at my wife and I tell her I'm having a hard day, she knows without question exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about my chronic neuropathy pain syndrome. I'm talking about my back hurting from the rods in my sacrum. I'm talking about the survivor's guilt, the lost friendships. I'm talking about my right femur aching or my scars being itchy, or my anxiety through the roof because I'm reliving one of the worst days of my entire life. This is gonna be hard. I haven't felt like this in a long time. Ooh, wow. This is why I didn't want to record this video. I didn't think It's so weird, dude. You think you're fine, and then you just start talking about it. Without either of us having to say a word, this one line has become a whole sentence between me and my wife. One where we don't need to go into detail. She knows what's going on, and she knows I don't want to talk about it. When I tell my wife I'm having a hard day, it means I'm suffering in some way, shape, or form from the worst day of my entire life and a direct result of my accident. Today was one of those days, a day where I woke up, and the moment I opened my eyes, instantly I felt the burning flare-up of my nerves, the pins and needles shooting through my right foot. The rest of my day revolved around that. Me trying to lay in bed with lotion and a heating pad to calm it down, me not being able to play with my son the way I want to because of the pain, me not being able to calm it down and then just wanting to sleep it off because of the frustration. This is usually followed by my wife wanting me to do something that she knows I love, and usually it helps for a little bit, and I tend to feel a little bit better mentally, but not physically. What's different about today is that today marks 5 years since the worst day of my entire life, since the day my world was changed forever, and the day I almost lost my leg, lost my life, and lost all of my confidence. But I've never actually told anyone what exactly happened. And for some reason right now, I want to talk about it, because if there's a person out there that's going through their own version of this, their own hard day, their own body that doesn't work the way it used to, maybe hearing my story helps. To start my story, I need to go all the way back to where it started. Before any of this, before I was in my accident, I was a band photographer, and it was my entire life. I toured, I shot concerts, I lived on the road, I was around live music every single day, and I was good at it. It was the one thing I had built my entire career around, and in some ways, it was my entire identity. I grinded for years to get there. It definitely was not handed to me. I started by shooting tiny local shows in Portland, Oregon. I would sneak my camera into these shows and fight my way to the front row and shoot photos until I got kicked out. I emailed hundreds of people, DM'd hundreds of artists, got ignored time and time again, but slowly, show by show, year by year, it all started to work. I went from shooting local bands to touring with real artists like Lord, Panic at the Disco, Marshmello, and a bunch of other really cool people that I've had the opportunity to work with over the past 15 years of my life. I was standing on the side of the biggest stages in the world, camera in my hand, doing the exact thing I've dreamed about since I was a kid. In my eyes, I had made it. I was living the dream I chased so hard for. And that's the part that makes what happens next really f***ed up. Dude, it's been 5 years. I'm still f***ed up. On August 20th, 2021, I was working the Hella Mega Tour with Green Day, Weezer, and Fall Out Boy. It was the end of the night, the show was over, and I was leading the venue in Philadelphia, and I got struck by a runaway forklift. So, at the end of the night, dude, I didn't want to cry. At the end of the night, after tours and after shows are done, they load all the tour into the back of these trucks, and those trucks tour and take it to the next venue for the next week. And it's very common it's called load out. It's when the stage is getting torn down, everything's going in the trucks, people are leaving the venue, going to the tour buses, going to the trucks to go to their... When I talk about it, my foot starts to like flare up. It's so weird. Like every other night, packed up my gear, walking with my Pelican case down a long hallway, this time in Philadelphia. You never really knew where you were because you're on tour. There's this massive ramp to get out of the venue to go to the tour buses. That ramp is the same ramp that everyone was loading out on, so all the forklifts with all the cases are going to and from bottom of the ramp to the top of the ramp, and it's really normal for that. It's not like an abnormal thing, so I thought it was any other night. I really want to tell this story. So as I'm walking up the ramp, probably 30, 40 yards in front of me, there's a forklift with a case on the front of it. And the case was going to one of the trucks. And I'm walking behind it. And I can kind of tell the forklift's having like a hard time. And the case on the front of the forklift kind of like wobbles and gets caught under the wheel, like something outside the case. I don't know. The case got ripped off the forklift. So this probably like 300-pound case on wheels is on a ramp. And it starts falling back, rolling towards me. So my first instinct is to obviously duck out of the way. So I move and I get out of the way of this case rolling towards me. And I duck up against the hallway or up against the wall, cement wall of the ramp. Everyone's yelling and screaming. And everyone's screaming, so I think that they're yelling about this case. So I'm watching the case go down the ramp. And I didn't see this, but the man operating the forklift had jumped out, left the forklift in gear, trying to get the case that had fallen off of his forklift. And as I'm looking down the ramp at this case flying down the ramp, little do I know there's a forklift free falling, rolling backwards, and crushes me between the wall of the venue, a pillar, myself. It was horrific, dude. It felt like a bomb had gone off inside of me. It felt like the hottest lava was being poured all over my body. I'm not sure how much time passed. Probably, it felt like years, but it was probably like 30 seconds. They moved the forklift and I went to step back on my leg, and obviously there's no leg to step back on, and I completely collapsed on the ground. I looked down and my right leg was wide open. It had lacerated my femoral artery and vein, the going and coming of your blood. It shattered my right femur. It broke both my hips. It shattered my sacrum, the base of my spine, and my lower back. Shattered my whole right leg. So up, man. I was bleeding out on the floor of this venue in the middle of Philadelphia, and I was minutes from not surviving. And I need to say this next part because it's absolutely true. If certain people from my touring crew were not there that night and hadn't reacted the way that they did, I absolutely would not be here today, nor would I be this version of I am today. And I 1000% owe those people my life. Literally, they know who they are. Man. One of the last things I remember is being loaded into the ambulance, looking down and seeing a man's hand in my leg holding my vein shut while I screamed and asked if I was going to live. They took me to Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia, where I was transported to the emergency room. The last thing I remember is yelling at the surgeon to put me to sleep, put me to sleep, put me to sleep. I owe the people at Jefferson my life, 1000%, as well as the people that were there on my touring crew that night, because the staff did two things there. First, they kept me alive, which was already a questionable thing. After lacerating an artery like that, I had lost so much blood that was not a guarantee that I was going to survive. And second, they saved my leg, my right leg, the one tethered in scars and deformations. Amputation was on the table. It was a real conversation. And they fought to keep my leg attached to my body, which I still have. And I got this cool metal rod. Part of my injury, a big part of my injury, was something called compartment syndrome. Essentially, when your leg gets crushed like mine did, it swells so badly that the pressure inside cuts off the blood vessels, and you essentially have to relieve that pressure. And to relieve that pressure, they had to cut open both sides of my leg, and they couldn't just instantly close it back up. They could only close a little bit at a time, every few weeks, an inch by inch, and only at times when my swelling would come down. So for weeks, my leg was literally an open wound. I would look down in my hospital bed and I just had an open chunk of meat hanging out of my leg. It was no joke how close I was to losing my leg, let alone surviving this whole ordeal. A large part of the battle was my shattered femur. It wouldn't grow back together. They called it a non-union break. Basically, my femur was completely shattered, and it was dying, and it was not connected in any way. And To fix that, I literally had to regrow my femur. I did a limb lengthening procedure to slowly break, re-break, and pull my femur down, re-break and pull, re-break and pull, and did that process for about 90 days every single day with a magnetic machine. And then as soon as we would do that, I would have more surgeries after that. After about 2 months in Jefferson Hospital, once I was stable enough, I went to a place called Magee Rehabilitation. Magee is where a whole different fight started. Jefferson is the place that kept me alive and brought me back to life. And Magee is where I had to learn to live in my body again. Relearning how to move, how to stand, eventually someday learning how to walk again. It was slow, it was humbling, and it breaks you down before it gets any better. And that place and the people are a huge reason that I'm still here functioning the way I am today. Here's the thing I want people to really understand, because this is the part that nobody sees, is surviving a traumatic injury like that is just the start of the battle. I've had somewhere around 35 surgeries. Some of them full operations, other ones were bedside, sedated, but still awake in my hospital bed. All that stuff is just what you see on the x-rays too. The stuff you don't see is probably worse. The drugs, I had to go on a lot of different drugs. I had to go on and come off of them. Painkillers, like the really heavy ones, the ones people get addicted to, and I totally understand how that happens. Muscle relaxers, hydroxyzine for panic attacks. Getting on them was a necessity to survive, and getting off of them was their own separate hell. Nobody really prepares you for that. The dreams I had were insane. I was flying through space and time, being ripped apart. Nightmares about forklifts rolling up and down, rolling on top of me, crushing me dodging them. Nightmares about my family and friends fading away because they were sick of taking care of me. And I was so heavily medicated the entire time that I really didn't know what was real and what wasn't. Touring is gone. I built my entire life around it, and I can't do it anymore. The one thing that I love, the one thing that I worked my ass off to get to, it's completely taken away from me. And I tried to go back on the road, and the PTSD is real. It's just, I went on a tour with some of my closest friends right beside me, and even with them next to me, I still felt like I don't think I'll ever go back. Lastly, it wasn't only me. This didn't just happen to me. It happened to everyone around me. It happened to my friends. It happened to my family. It happened to my wife. My family and Stephanie lived it every single day, standing next to me in the hospital bed. People I love carry things that they'll never talk about and that they never signed up for because of my accident. Some friendships didn't survive it, but people disappeared. And it took me a long time to stop being angry about that, because trauma doesn't stay in the body. It spreads out. It goes to everyone you love, everything you do. And today marks 5 years since that day. 5 years, I still have hard days. The reason I picked up my pen to start writing this video was because I was having a very hard day. As I'm recording this video, my foot feels like it's on fire, but I'm here, I'm alive, and I want to tell my story, and I want you guys to hear it. I've waited so long to tell it, and I just need to start telling you guys because I want to, and it makes me feel good. If you want to hear about my recovery, my surgeries more in detail, what I'm doing now, why I'm in Los Angeles, and what I have in store for the future, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, follow along, and tune in. It's therapeutic to talk about. I didn't know this was going to be so hard for me to do, but it was. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. I mean, look at this rod, dude. That sucked.